After a very strong 04-05 year of Raw, it was time to shake things up. The show's roster had an incredible blend of wrestling skill and entertainment. Chris Benoit, Batista, Triple H, then in the mid-card you had the likes of Shelton, Benjamin, and Christian, and the women's division was pretty strong as well. The show really knew what it was all about. The 2005 WWE draft saw many faces go away. Chris Benoit, Randy Orton, Christian, and Batista were among the notable names to move to Thursday nights. For Raw, they won back a whole hell of a lot. John Cena, Kurt Angle, Carlito, Rob Van Dam, and The Big Show. A very nice set of wrestlers there, and for certain, these men made an impact. So what was up with Raw during this time period? Now, of course, with it being the summer, it meant Diva Search time. Several women vying for the right to win a WWE contract. Since Johnny Ace recruited them, it meant a bunch of them were being signed anyway. This version of Diva Search isn't talked about because it wasn't as catastrophic as the original. They didn't know what they were doing in the first place, but here, they had a better idea of what was in front of them, so there wasn't many standout moments. You weren't going to hear Ashley cuss out another woman, and in general, there's just not much to say about this one. Ashley won the Diva Search, which meant she won a contract, and of course a bunch of the women signed anyway, but Ashley got an immediate push feuding with Vince's Devils, and I'll get into that in a moment. But in general, the Diva Search didn't have a must-see moment. It just happened, and I almost never hear anyone talk about the 2005 version. When 2005 rolled around, very few believed Shelton Benjamin wasn't on the road to superstardom. His impressive athleticism, world-class timing, and just overall an amazing in-ring performer allowed him to shine in Raw's mid-card. It was a human highlight reel, no doubt about it, and the crazy part is that he did these impressive feats of strength and balance like it was nothing. But the moment he lost the Intercontinental Championship, everything went downhill. He had a losing streak which was reported by the Torch as a result of him disrespecting a veteran agent, and the most frustrating thing about these losses is that they were in close matches. In storyline, Benjamin's losing streak brought out the presence of his mom. I don't know why or what this was about, but man, Shelton was labeled mid-card afterwards. 2005, before the draft, Shelton Benjamin had that dog in him. This man wrestled with a chip on his shoulder and was hell-bent on stealing the show. Now, he's got to win matches with his mom's help. Mom carried him through his childhood, and now she's got to come in clutch during wrestling matches. Mama Benjamin here was carrying hard. She was carrying 2006 Kobe Bryant on a weak Lakers team hard, and her influence led to Benjamin recapturing the title that brought him so much success. He started wearing a casual shirt and sunglasses, but not much from a character standpoint changed. He literally just changed his look, his entrance look, that's it. Benjamin was doing decently, but that fire from 2005 was gone. He didn't have that aura of a special thing waiting to happen, and it felt like his window of opportunity passed. That said, he was still as good as ever in ring. Now, I don't know why WWE does this, especially in the 2000s. At the time, they had Heinrich as a poet turned vapist, Matt Morgan was stuttering, and Snitsky was out here trying to suck toes. It was always that one thing about insert name. If you weren't good in ring or a notable promo, they would give you something like this, and it's actually legit. It's actually something that's real, so he enjoyed it. But what the hell does it add to this show? This man's already losing, now he looks goofy. Snitsky was relegated to heat as expected with the likes of Viscera, who I should know turned into a ladies' man. Bro was always prepared for anything. He started wearing pajamas to the ring. Why? I don't know. If a woman randomly calls him, I mean, he's gonna take off the clothes anyway, and I don't want to think about that. But one thing for sure is that Viscera's new gimmick was hilarious. This guy got Lillian Garcia blushing over him, and she even tried proposing to him, but he pushed her like a side piece in favor of the Godfather's hose. She sang a whole love song to him, and he put that behind him like that. His finisher, the less said about it, the better. Whoever gave him that move ain't seen heaven. Around late 2005, the McMahons began appearing more often on Raw. This was a very unusual occurrence, and the last time you saw them this often was in like 2003. After Stone Cold dropped them all with a stunner, Mr. McMahon was threatening to fire someone. Of course, they ended up going after JR, who was Austin's best friend, but before officially firing him, they embarrassed him. And to top it all off, it wasn't Vince who said it, it was Linda McMahon. This was such an L storyline. Man is the voice of Raw, the most iconic voice, and instead of leaving with pride and dignity, it had to be of the ultimate disgrace. Now, one thing to mention is that JR had to go away for colon surgery. So, at the time, there was always a reason for why somebody went away. So put that aside. But what came out of JR getting fired was just trash. The coach was pressing him. Stone Cold got involved and wanted to fight him to get JR's job back. And in reality, that wasn't going to happen. Why? Because WWE was looking to bring in Mike Goldberg of the UFC. It was very close, and hearing Goldberg commentate matches on Monday nights would have been something. And JR was constantly mentioned and provoked on TV because, why not? What's crazier though is that Stone Cold's return match was supposed to end with him losing to the coach. The coach! Austin didn't really enjoy the way the story was booked and was like, I'm out. The first match since WrestleMania 19, it's not against John Cena, Hulk Hogan, or Batista. It's against the coach, and he was losing. I'm dizzy right now. Jim Ross did end up returning in time for WrestleMania 22. Joey Styles as a lead announcer was an odd fit. He wasn't memorable in that position, and if anything, the fact that somebody replaced JR is what makes it memorable in itself. But other than that, he didn't really have many memorable lines other than WrestleMania 22, of course. Styles himself was not appreciated by Vince, and the change had to be made. We did get the pipe bomb, though, from it. A moment which came from out of nowhere with Styles expressing his disregard for WWE's rules and criticism towards the system in itself. He just wanted to be break-free and talk about the wrestlers other than stories on the commentary table. Unfortunately, 2005 was also the year Chris Jericho walked away. Well, actually, fortunately. Up until this year, it was clear that Y2J's ceiling was shut with concrete. No matter what he did, he would never hoist the world title. His final days saw him put over John Cena like hell in some good matches. Jericho's heel run was entertaining from a character, promo, and in-ring standpoint. With that said, it's not like a damn, I wish we had seen more of him type of thing. Jericho left at the right time. He wasn't getting any better. He was always around, and a break to recharge was best. It didn't hurt them at the moment, and plus, when they needed star power, he was right there in 2007. One of the biggest problems Raw had in general during this era was the tag team division. At times, it felt so insignificant, and there just wasn't much interesting stuff going on. Around here, the Hurricane and Rosie were the most forgettable tag team champions, and other than them, there wasn't much. There was literally one other team. Then came a much-needed inclusion to the tag team division. Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. Two country boys all about beer and ass whoopings in Murdoch's case. And right when they came in, without even saying hello, they won the titles. Only to lose into the Big Show and Kane, a team that's makeshift. And the funny part is that Cade and Murdoch split for a while after losing the titles. So, Kane and Big Show beat them so badly, they began regretting this whole entire thing. Then on the side, you had the Hurricane losing himself. That meant the end of the tag team with Rosie. He went on to SmackDown to become Gregory Helms, but back to Big Show and Kane. The division was so damn dry. Their opponents were Snitsky and Tyson Tomko, the Heartthrobs, and best of all, Chris Masters and Carlito. These guys would stare a hole in each other before causing hell all over the place. There was some cool ones to come from it, but right after WrestleMania, the Spear Squad ended the run and sent Kane on a terror spree all over that date, May 18, +1. For certain, the tag team division got better as time went on because there was a lot more star power into it. Of course, it didn't last long. As for the Divas division, a lot happened. First of all, the division at one point was so damn dry. The biggest stories in the division were Ashley winning the Diva search and Tori Wilson turning heel. She formed a little partnership with Candice Michelle and Victoria, which was eventually known as Vince's Devils. They're out here bullying Ashley, who didn't have any backup, and the trio gave off a Mean Girls vibe with belittling and just a swagger in their entrances. Ashley had protection, though, in the form of Trish Stratus, who was back after 4 months, and with that, the division had a lot more attention to it. Now, Trish Stratus was the John Cena of the division, so obviously they'd focus on it now. Add to that, the women's title was back because she took it with her when she was injured. Then Mickie James debuted, and a long-term storyline developed between herself and Trish Stratus, a story which went from I'm your biggest fan to I have the biggest crush on you to I want your title. Had some deep writing and focus, which was very unusual in the division at the time. Mickie James became one of the biggest women's wrestlers as well, and other than that, there was the Playboy cover girl storyline, which I doubt many remember. Well, actually, it's Tori Wilson and Candice Michelle, so I take that back. But the division as a whole lacked the wrestlers, but from a character standpoint, it was a bit deeper, I'd say. Not that much, but there's a difference from 04 to 05 to 05 and 06. While Shelton Benjamin was floundering, Carlito and Chris Masters were excelling. Chris Masters was out here bullying people with the Master Lock, a move which a bunch of us experienced, and I loved that move at school. And Masters was only 23, yet he was out here main eventing an Elimination Chamber match with the likes of John Cena, Kurt Angle, and Shawn Michaels. Carlito, on the other hand, was Intercontinental Champion. He had a lot of Raw main events facing the likes of John Cena and Shawn Michaels. Both men were intertwined. Masters was out here having a program with Shawn Michaels at 22, and the duo even formed a tag team, but it was unsuccessful, and Carlito turned face. Carlito turning face on paper sounds good, but I think it came too soon. There's a little more he could have done as a heel, and plus, those in the back weren't exactly fans of his because of his attitude. As for Masters, once the partnership ended with Carlito, so did his push. He had to go away, and when he came back, he was a bit smaller, and Triple H made fun of him. 2005-06 Raw was pretty damn kind to Triple H. In the beginning, he was away. He had a much-needed break that also allowed him to be missed a bit as well. This man had everyone, including Ric Flair, fooled. Why? Because he turned on him in the most dastardly way, the way the game was known for. Ric Flair was all up on him. He's the greatest wrestler alive today. The measuring stick, And Flair had his own success winning the IC title, a huge moment in itself, but he cared more about Triple H. This personal rivalry was certainly the darkest on Raw at the time, and it was a nice return program for Triple H. I really liked this version of him because he wasn't always in the main event scene, his character was much cooler than previously, and he wasn't disappointing in-ring as well. It got to a point where a lot of people wanted him to beat John Cena. Of course, this was everybody hates Cena time, but following WrestleMania, he was getting cheered a lot. Triple H was really getting cheered a lot, and he was no longer a heel. It was all building up to a special reunion with his friend who had issues with the boss, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels' time on Raw that year was probably the craziest year for any wrestler in 2005. So first of all, he was pressing Kurt Angle over a rematch. Then he super kicked Hulk Hogan, leading to a program which saw HBK play a heel at the request of Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan does what he wants. Shawn Michaels in the year of 2005 did not need to be a heel, but man was he so good in this role. 1 month, yet HBK went all out. Of course, he couldn't be his old self, but HBK showed that he could still pull it off. The promo in Montreal is easily one of his finest work. 8 years removed from the Montreal screw job, yet these fans still hated him like it was yesterday. That tease was some world-class trolling from Michaels, and when his run did come to an end at SummerSlam, he had to do it in a goofy manner. Because you guys may know this, Hulk Hogan didn't want to put him over, citing back issues. You know, they agreed on 2 matches or 3. So Shawn Michaels took liberties into his own hands and had a match straight from the late 80s. To some, it ruined the match. To others, it enhanced it a bit. For me personally, it makes Hulk Hogan look like the ultimate superhero, having him send HBK flopping around like a fish. For Michaels, he lost, but it was all about wanting to know whether he could put Hogan down for the 1, 2, 3. Michaels gave Chris Masters his best match in WWE, and after flirting with the title scene in an awesome triple threat match at Taboo Tuesday, he crossed the boss. And this all started because he told McMahon to move on from Montreal. Bro brought McMahon to demon time. This guy certainly lost his mind after Shawn Michaels told him that. Why? Because he drugged his drink and forced him to take a drug test, took a beating at WrestleMania that only increased his hatred for him. And this is when he thought to himself, hey, HBK had help. He had help from God Almighty. This man literally had beef with God, and Shane didn't want none. This led to McMahon, the guy who causes hell, in church. This is like SpongeBob on top of the Empire State Building or something like that. It's just so damn random and very unlikely. It was a crazy storyline. It wasn't parting Caesar or anything like that, but he was more about parting Candice's top. The funniest thing about this is that Shane just hated HBK. He didn't want to take part in any of this. And McMahon booked a match with HBK and God, and he won it. Now, as a kid, this is pretty dumb. This is a very stupid thing to say. I legit thought HBK teamed up with somebody named God. I didn't think they were talking about God. But HBK taking these beatings was all building up to something. And then Triple H on the other side was having some issues with McMahon as well. We all know what was going to happen as time went on. One of the most memorable things to come from this time period, no doubt about it, is the rise of Edge. Edge was always going to be a world champion, but his ascension and his rise to the top of the mountain was extremely interesting. Edge had this character change. He used to be purely driven by the world championship and would stop at nothing to get it. Now that he had the Money in the Bank in Lita, he was more of a c***. It was the best thing to happen to him. He punked out Matt Hardy, which was sad, and if you look at it from his perspective, was messed up. He captured the gold in an iconic moment at New Year's Revolution and went on a 1-month run that easily stands out. He was on top in the ring and on top in the bed the next night in the middle of the ring. Who else was trying to in the WWE ring? Then the next week, he had everyone believing old man Ric Flair was going to be champion in a TLC match. I don't know why WWE ended the run before the month ended like a free trial, but one thing for sure is that Edge passed the test. He gave Raw his highest ratings in almost 5 years, all from the hype of the cash-in and his celebration. Then his match with Mick Foley put him back in title contention. Edge's year was incredible and has a great template on how to push somebody from first title win to permanent main eventer. He was wilding in many ways, but Kurt Angle was a plain weirdo. This man during his final days on SmackDown was a predator. He's out here running away from a match to try and catch Charmel, and he had a thing for stealing other men's women. Of course, he wasn't smooth about it like Future. Angle's run on Raw was interesting. He turned into the wrestling machine and spoke less often. Of course, when he spoke, it was controversial. Like, half the stuff he was saying was better kept as a dirty little secret. Angle was working hard to put John Cena over, but unfortunately, their matches didn't reach their full potential. They were good, but there was always some drama surrounding them. But as I was saying, Angle was weird. He had his own personal referee, Daivari. Eric Bischoff censored the "You Suck" chants for him because he was whining about it. And man had to cheat to beat 2005 Ric Flair. Then after the match, he comes out and says he refused to go and entertain the troops. He didn't want to go wrestle for a country that doesn't respect him. He started trashing the troops, and Angle was going all out. He even said that he wasn't a fan of black people. He wanted to make Jesus tap out. Why was he saying all this stuff? Well, Angle hated the "You Suck" chants, but he knew that the fans appreciated him. This was just trying to prove that no matter what he does or says, they love him. Angle's run on Raw, though, ended subtly. Why? Because Batista got hurt on SmackDown and he needed a world champion. Shawn Michaels was asked, but he didn't work Tuesdays. I don't know what Angle would have did if he remained on Raw. It wasn't going to be John Cena or Shawn Michaels he was facing at WrestleMania. Possibly The Undertaker? Fine, WrestleMania. Other than Batista, there was no other wrestler on a high like John Cena. Maybe RVD. This man was out here dropping a rap album on Tuesday and wrestling on Thursdays. It's hard to compare his momentum to any wrestler, especially from that time period, but he was big. Then he was moved to Raw, which cemented his status as the #1 guy, and of course the push got harder. He was beating the likes of Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle, and Cena was all about overcoming the odds and slowly moving away from his rap character. Of course, when he did a freestyle, he hit hard, and it was pretty damn good, but it was less often. Cena's in-ring ability was slowly improving, and he was much better after WrestleMania 22. But during those Y2J and Angle matches, he was pretty limited. Some of the fans were turning on him, but I know a bunch of you at the time were Cena fanboys like me. I even had one of these thinking I was like John Cena. His program with Triple H was a little weird because they were talking about his wrestling ability, but the first parts of the Edge feud was where it's at. You can see the chemistry that these two had early on. The WrestleMania match with Triple H, in my opinion, is severely overlooked. Then you have Backlash, another great match. And then to top it all off, John Cena had to walk into a situation no champion in recent memory had to walk through. He had to walk through the Hammerstein Ballroom at ECW One Night Stand. It was a superb culmination of his 4-month title reign, an amazing match with Rob Van Dam coupled with a legendary atmosphere. It really felt like Cena was in enemy territory, and this in itself is one of the most iconic images. I think it's safe to say that John Cena was Raw's Wrestler of the Year. You could probably go with HBK, Kurt Angle, but they didn't have a bigger impact than John Cena did throughout the year. Overall, Raw 2005-2006 had a lot of questionable booking decisions. It wasn't as consistent as 04-05 was, which was very tight. They knew what they were doing. Their direction was clear as day. Here, there was some odd stuff. The JR firing storyline was very, very uninteresting. It was dumb. But the good stuff is great to amazing. You know, Edge's rise was something to watch. It's a very special thing, especially if you go back and watch it. But as I was saying, you know, it's not as consistent. Shelton Benjamin wasn't as big. The mid-card guys weren't really making names for themselves as time went on. It was in that area. I'm a bit biased, but I look at this period fondly. RVD's return, he comes back, he cashes in the briefcase. That was great. That was an iconic moment. Triple H's slow face turn. McMahon was wild, and there was a lot of stuff going on, you know. Like, obviously not everything's going to be good. There was really a lot of different stuff on the show, so that's a positive, you know. There's a lot of variety. You had the wrestling machine Kurt Angle. You had Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels over here feuding over Montreal. Vince bringing in God. It was crazy. Next video hopefully is Raw 06-07. I was going to include it in this video, so that's why I didn't talk about the DX reunion or Randy Orton or any of those guys. There's a reason why I didn't mention this stuff. It's because I'm saving it for the next video, Raw 06-07. So yeah. Alright, what'd you guys think of Raw 2005-06? Please comment down below. That's the first video. Make sure you hit the sweet chin music on the like button or perhaps the FU on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.